obviously they're not our attorneys from the roundtable, but perhaps there could be some information gleaned from Supervisor Pine's office.
So as a follow-up, Kathleen, thank you for bringing that up. And as a follow-up, I feel that I can report because I had a call from Supervisor Pine a couple of days ago, and he brought up the fact that the same attorney is representing the county on this, and he is going to ask, the supervisors are asking him to do a comparison and opinion on it and how it may or may not be beneficial to our situation. There are some very factually different contextual things, situations with the Phoenix lawsuit versus our situation, and those were brought up just now about the historical area and the parks versus our, general urban area and residential areas. And another fact that I think everybody will remember is when the Woodside resident Jim Lyons, Woodside Portola group, Jim Lyons group, they filed a lawsuit similar to this with a similar argument, and our Ninth Circuit Court shot it down. So the courts that ruled over the Phoenix case versus the court were very lenient for Phoenix in the face of FAA, and the Ninth Circuit, which is a very high-level court, as we all know, essentially shot down that case that Jim Lyons and his friends brought forth. And then I think that what Supervisor said was that there is a procedural filing date that to file a lawsuit, and I think that's why the Jim Lyons group did it as quickly as they possibly could. It was 60 days after provocation, if you will, and the Phoenix judges gave them some leeway even in that. But for us to kind of copy the lawsuit, I don't think that is an approach that we can take. And even though it's exciting to see that a court is ruled against the FAA's rollout of the next gen, but so all that being said, and it's secondhand from my conversation with Supervisor Pine and our discussion about Jim Lyons' case, he indicated that this attorney representing the county in airport noise issues is going to summarize an opinion for us. And is that what you're also understanding, Kathleen?
Yes, I some of that information, and yeah, so that they're in the best position to tell us if there is anything useful in that case that can be used, because I can't imagine anybody had a better handle on that whole thing. So that's terrific that they're willing to do that for the county.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Laszlo
Vespremi, Mouse Speech. Just help me out here. As I understand, the Phoenix case hinged on insufficient public input or city input, as well as the lack of EIR, environmental impact report. So those are factors that would apply to us as well.
Okay.
Yes and no, because they did do an environmental assessment, an environmental impact report that the roundtable said was insufficient, and that we didn't really have enough time actually to thoroughly vet it, but it was an environmental assessment, and but they did do it, and it wasn't. We didn't give them approval. I mean, obviously the roundtable didn't give them approval to do this, so they just decided to do it. And we were very skeptical when they came in front of us and said, we're going to do this GPS thing, and we go, wait a minute, you're going to make railroad tracks in the sky? This will be terrible, you know?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just one more question or remark. So it is against the FAA's own regulation to shift noise from impact from one area to another. So with the NextGen, it's clearly the case. So they are actually also in conflict with their own regulations.
Okay, any other?
Elizabeth, could when someone is speaking from the audience that I don't, could you have them say their name? I couldn't hear that gentleman's name.
Okay.
So, Kathleen, that was Laszlo from Moss Beach.
Got it. Thank you. Laszlo.
Thanks.
And,
John Keener is going to speak next, so speak
Yeah.
up, John.
yeah, in Pacifica, there are some public parks that are affected. The San Pedro Valley County Park, where I hike frequently, has just an enormous number of flyovers now, whereas, of course, before NextGen, it didn't. And it really affects the sort of peace and calm and so on that one would expect of that park.
So I wonder how many other areas are like that, all over. I see hands go up.
Okay, so is the park this is Janet speaking, is the park recognized, I mean, it's not just, it's actually a recognized park for hiking and,
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
Yes,
good.
yes, it's a county park.
It's a county park, I'm sorry, I did not
Yeah.
hear you say that.
My name is Peter Grace. There's a county
Peter
park
Gray speaking.
on San Bruno Mountain next flyover,
There's a county park on San Bruno Mountain.
which is being used as a dumping ground at the moment.
And you mean a dumping ground as far as
Flyover.
flyovers, not,
Not really.
Okay.
Not literally.
I'm Charlie Wambeck from San Francisco, and we have McLaren Park right in our neighborhood. That's the second largest park in San Francisco. And I think when the airlines see a vacant space, they think that that's uninhabited, so they can fly over it.
Laszlo West Premium Moss Beach. So there is the McNee State Park around Montara. There is the St. Catherine Hospital, also in the flight path in Moss Beach. And there are several parks and historical districts in Half Moon Bay itself.
So, would it be in our interest, our best interest, to put a list together of what we may have in San Mateo County of designated park or recognized county or state, or would that be something that we would want to move forward with, or is that considered in the historic or protected?
well, this is Elizabeth speaking in response to Janet's comment. I think that obviously would be a good exercise. However, I think until we understand what legal parameters that we may have in the light of some of this precedent, I guess. But I guess the other thing that, and I kind of had this back and forth conversation with Supervisor Pine, and he says, well, but you have to understand procedurally there was this, there's this law that you have to file within 60 days. And so we're way past that, obviously, but that doesn't mean that we can't, make our case, I guess. So I don't know what else to say about that.
60 days from
Say it, your name, please.
John Keener.
John
John
Keener.
Keener. 60 days from.
I guess the provocation, he said. Provocation.
The legal.
Right.
My name is Peter Grace. I think in the original FAA report, they actually listed the parks.
Oh.
So I would go back and have a look at that. My memory's faulty, but I would have thought that's one place to go and look. And I would also talk about the overflight of the cemeteries as well.
I wake them up.
Time to wake them up.
I love being in.
Janet?
Yes.
Hi, Ann Schneider from Millbrae.
We have a number of parks here and most likely in Burlingame and San Bruno, but definitely Millbrae when there are bad weather flights. Now, my guess is that those aren't the same thing, but if we're going to do that list, I just want to make sure that Burlingame and Millbrae are reflected in that.
Do them all. Yeah.
Las Flores Primi, Mouse Beach. So I do agree with Elizabeth that we may not have to copy exactly the Phoenix lawsuit, which really focuses on historical districts and parks. So it would be helpful if this legislative committee could come up with a number of different issues that can serve as a guideline for the attorneys engaged by the county, so that they know what to look for specifically.
Okay.
Guidelines meaning?
So what are the specific issues that we are concerned with? What are some of the remedies that we can see as you know, as a possibility? For example, moving port waypoint from El Granada over to the ocean as it was, and such suggestions. So I think that the more material this committee is able to deliver to the attorneys are in a better position to understand our specific issues versus Phoenix.
Just to respond to that, this is Elizabeth, just to respond to that, especially if you're talking about air tracking and moving new procedures to things. We've already done that, and that's what our response to their initiative document was. And so I think there's over 94 specific guidelines that we've already given them, and that they have responded to, some sort of, some not at all, and some very not at all. And so we're kind of in the second phase, waiting for them to respond again, from our last meeting up in San Francisco. So I think this, obviously, I was very excited when I got this. I thought this was great. I thought, finally the courts are going to push back on the FAA, and they're going to tell them they can't be doing what they're doing. And, then you dig down, and this is not our template, but I guess it is something that kind of can buoy us a little bit to not give up the fight. And so that's what I think we're trying to figure out, how to approach it. And it's really up to our Congress people. And with Kathleen, did you indicate when you thought that the Congress members would have an opinion or their information that they requested?
No, Elizabeth, the FAA did not. We did a follow-up this week as well and reminded them of the earlier request, and we don't have a promised date when it's going to be done. I think you're right, Elizabeth. When I shared your experience when I first heard the headlines on this wonderful case. I thought it was great. And then when you dig down, you realize that it's great for Phoenix, and it has, who knows? Maybe it'll have some slight do something for us. I don't see how, but perhaps it's possible. But I think what's great about it is I think the FAA is shocked. I think the FAA has been handed their hat with this case, and especially the language used by the judges, the opinion writer of this case. Some really strong language, and I think that coupled with their newly found community engagement work and structure they're setting up is starting to change the culture of the FAA. Mm-hmm. So wherever that is, I think that's an important part of it.
Very important. I agree with you, Elizabeth. This is Janet. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I'm sorry that Supervisor Pine or Linda is not here. He had indicated that she would probably be here to kind of, boost up the fact that they're going to try to get the attorney, and you know how attorneys are, they take a long time to write something, because once they write it, we hold them, their feet to the fire. So,
Elizabeth, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, but I did get a text from Linda just as I started my drive, and I couldn't text her back or anything, so it was kind of uncomfortable. But she was just saying that she was going to be late getting onto the call or getting into the meeting. I don't know which.
oh,
So I think she's still planning to attend, but I as I say, I was driving. I couldn't text her back for any other information.
okay. Oh, okay. Good. So Justin,
No, that's good, go ahead.
Anybody else have some comments or recommendations how we want to deal with this at this time? The Phoenix victory. We'd love to be able to make it ours.
Yeah.
This is John Keener again.
John Keener.
So, would it be possible to make our filing date, the provocation for our filing date, the FAA's issuance of their last response to our request? So that came out in July, right?
The meeting that we had, I forget even.
They haven't finished yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
August 15th.
August, okay.
Yes.
I don't know.
If I can comment, Elizabeth, I've heard that suggestion from someone else that would use the publication dated initiative or the publication date of the next response, final response. But I think if you look at the introductory pages of the interim response we have, you'll find a notation towards the end that refers to the fact that this document, and I'm paraphrasing badly here, this document is not a final order of the FAA per section or whatever. And they very clearly put that in there to say that this is not an actionable report. So you'd have to talk to the lawyers about that, but look for that language, and I think you see that they cover themselves.
Nice try, John.
Yes.
That was good.
So we have another member of the public that's
So Jennifer Landsman from Palo Alto has a comment.
Hi, yes, it's about the Phoenix ruling. I think that it provided a lot of information about, maybe what the parameters are about engagement. And it was highlighted how alternatives, there's a back and forth in Phoenix about what alternatives are. And putting that together with the Phase 2 report from the FAA, there are a lot of federal processes, and obviously including NEPA, that have been laid out for us. And my concern is that I wasn't able to attend the general meeting of the roundtable last time, but I watched it on video and I heard comments that there was this push to implement all feasible items immediately. And when half of the report has not had any response, let me be the first one to say that we need some help sooner than later, but that does not mean causing terrible harm in the areas where I've been coming to the round table a year prior to when we got the FAA to come to the table. Mm-hmm. And I had no help from this process. So now to rush to have an implementation without looking at alternatives to help in those terms, I think it puts all of the statements that the roundtable is putting to the senators and everything in a really compromised position, because you're saying one thing for one group of people and then saying screw the rest.
Mm-hmm. Let me, if Laszlo will explain me on speech. So I think that this is a very critical time for all of us, because as everyone knows, half of the responses are being brewed right now by the FAA. And so they are actually in the process of making decisions about half of the requests of the roundtable. Putting psychological pressure on them this is the right time to do that before they make some wrong decisions. And to do that, we took some steps. The city of Half Moon Bay had on August 4th a meeting where they unanimously decided to approach the Congresswoman and the FAA to seek relief. City of Pacifica had a city council meeting on August 16th. Also, similar outcome. So we have a lot of cities that have been Sue just walked in. So we have a lot of cities that actually have taken proactive actions. But FAA needs to know that we do have, meetings that, and we'd like to contest pretty much everything that we are asked for and we are not getting. So maybe a letter of intent of suing is something that could be considered. It's not actually filing a lawsuit, but putting them on notice that we are considering a lawsuit against the FAA.
May I respond to that? Jennifer Landison from Palo Alto. So what I'm concerned about is what the community are trying to do psychological pressure on the FAA by jumping to conclusions about what you want to push for. And without having proper environmental assessment, without having any data, we need an abundance of data before decisions are made. So really putting this on the FAA is a little premature when we have not gotten our act together. Within the Phase 2 report, it says very clearly there are conflicts. You have to coordinate between the roundtable, the select committee, which currently doesn't exist. So come on, there's alternate reality that the communities are living with votes about this and that, and then the reality of people on the ground. So we need to sort that out before having all these threats to the FAA. Certainly, if you want to threaten on your own behalf for something that you think has not been given to you, go ahead. But that still leaves the rest of us out of this process, and that's completely unacceptable.
But do you consider, do you consider that the roundtable's 104 points were not covering eventualities?
First of all, it's not the roundtable's 104 points.
Mm-hmm.
Part of them are from the select committee, part of them are from the roundtable.
Okay.
Several of these are in conflict. One of the most controversial votes was done, and I will remind everyone that there was one proposal for Southern arrivals, which was very well termed as the fingers of death, because before there were some criteria for this route, it was a terrible idea. And so it took the select committee forever to vote on it, and now some of that criteria can be met and some of it cannot. Well, that needs to be worked out, because if the people voted on the basis of that criteria and it's not being met, that's a problem. So none of these things are being mentioned. It's like, oh, it's okay. Of course the route doesn't impact you. And so what I'm saying is that something better has to come from this process before we can start blaming the FAA. And I'm not saying that they're without blame.
Yep.
Okay, so, yeah, is there anyone else that? Where are we now? Sorry for being sorry, we're right here.
Okay, thank you. In pain today. Okay. Hold on.
Anyone else that hasn't spoke up anyone on the conference call have any response to what's been said?
This is Kathleen Wentworth. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the name of the last woman who was speaking.
Yes, my name is Jennifer Landisman, and I'm a resident of Palo Alto.
Hello, Jennifer.
Hi, Kathleen. So, yeah, I don't know if you heard all my comments. I'm happy to email my concerns. I've just been kind of aghast at this idea that everything that's feasible should be implemented, when there are, like, the writing is on the wall that there are all these processes that need to be followed first. And then we're already here.
Jennifer,
yeah.
Jennifer, I heard all of your comments, and of course, the recommendations are only one step in the process. As you well know, there is a lengthy process the FAA will go through before anything is implemented. So, I'm not going to get into it now, but be assured that there'll be plenty of input.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Could I ask?
Say your name.
My name is Peter Gray.
Yes, Peter.
So Jennifer, are you asking us for a complete regional solution before deciding what to do?
Well,
I'm trying to draw you out.
Peter, this is a loaded question, because what was before Next Gen is one set of tools that there were problems, and what is after Next Gen is another. We went through multi-month process to ask the FAA to fly higher, over water, spread out. What everybody knows is that there are many constraints about flying higher, over water, or for everybody. Yeah, they can fly over water for 10 people, but not 1,000. And so, you know, that's a bit of an issue. So it's a different situation right now. And so what I think is happening is that we might be working with the wrong concepts, that we want to go back, we want to go up higher, we want to go spread out. My personal, what I advocate for, and many people believe in, and this is not just me around the country, Massachusetts just started a quiet caucus. They believe that we need to be talking about equitable solutions, because you're either going to have something which is more equitably distributed if you cannot fly higher, because you cannot pound the same people over and over again. So all of the talk about health cannot go with this, oh, we're worried about health, but let's put 10 people where you can fly 10, you know, over water, and not the thousands that are being harmed. So a comprehensive solution would be about that.
Okay, it's okay, Jennifer. I so commend your passion. I do.
Yeah,
But I think, you know, that is going to be a conversation that needs to take place, I think, at the table of the whole. And so let's get back to the issue that we have in front of us, which has to do with this,
Item number 2.
Item number 2, the City of Phoenix versus FAA decision. So, what do we want to do with this document? What should we do with it? Do we extrapolate some important things out of it? What?
So here's my recommendation. I think that everybody feels, again, that we were buoyed by it. We thought, you know, this is really something we could just take and go forward with, and file lawsuits. I just want to say here, personally, as chair of the roundtable, as a member of the roundtable a long, long time, I do not believe that the roundtable is in any way, shape, or form positioned, or the body, to attempt a lawsuit. Okay, so put that out of everybody's head. The roundtable will never sue. The roundtable is a place for discussion, for collaboration, for understanding everyone's issues. Now, so that's that, and if the City of Half Moon Bay or the City of Moss Beach or Pacifica individually want to file lawsuits, that's fine. You know, Town of Atherton has filed lawsuits against high-speed rail and Caltrans all the time. So anyway, trains. But so that's my little speech there. And as far as, I think we need legal direction as to what, if anything, we can hang on to with this Phoenix lawsuit.
Who is we?
The roundtable.
The roundtable.
And then we get to disseminate that, because the roundtable has, every person in the roundtable is represented in our San Mateo County and North Bay regions, okay? So council people would have the understanding to then go back to their council, their communities, and figure that out, okay?
Bring forth all the information.
And so I think we really can't do much until we have some legal input. Does that sound right?
Sounds about right.
I
I think we need to figure out what, if, again, that's some opinion or, you know,
Yeah.
what we're getting back to see. Probably more of how we can leverage that with our existing relationship with the FAA.
Yeah.
I think that's probably, because I think one of the key things I just heard was, I think Kathleen had mentioned,
Yeah.
this really kind of shakes them up a bit and rethinking community engagement. And it's certainly something that I've been hearing rumblings about with their work with LA and other places that they're learning slowly. But it'll be really interesting that after this, see what they end up doing that might be beneficial. And I think right now, I think you really did say it. Roundtable has had a history of working with multiple stakeholders. We may not be all on the same page, but they are coming to the table. I will remind everybody that as part of the Jim Lyons lawsuit, there was a period of time that the FAA was very limited on what they can talk to us about because of the pending litigation. They could attend, but if you remember, they were sitting in the back because of that. So as a reminder, you know, if we start kind of going down that road, it's a little bit difficult. So I think the path of waiting to see what type of opinion might be written in what comes out of that that's applicable or may not be, given our areas, I think is probably the right way to go for the time being.
So through the chair, if we could, because I want to kind of respond to Jennifer's comments, and if we actually have it on our agenda number 5, follow up the list of other roundtables, because Jennifer brought to the fact that the South Bay feels unrepresented.
Right.
They don't have a vehicle for their recommendations to even be discussed.
San Francisco too.
Right. Even though you have a San Francisco supervisor who is sitting on the round table. Okay. So in a sense, you have representation. The South Bay doesn't. Okay. Now, I know that there are South Bay roundtables being formed. You know, they've right? Do you want to report on that? But how long that takes, it will take a little bit of time, but it needs to be taken. I would like to posit that we, as a roundtable, open up our membership to at least a supervisor or representative from each of the Santa Clara County and Santa Cruz counties in the interim as a bridge so that that group has a voice on our roundtable. I mean, I'm just bringing this up, but that I think Kathleen
are you joking?
Probably not, but anyway.
No, actually, but I do want to thank you folks, but I have to go into my meeting, so excuse me for bowing out. Thank you. Okay. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
I'm from her later.
Okay, so I actually support that, so go ahead.
Sorry, Lydia Cruz, Palo Alto.
Lydia Cruz, Palo Alto?
Yes, so Elizabeth, I just want to say thank you very much for bringing that topic up. And I think in the long term, I think the FAA also wants to see consensus from the region before they come to a decision. And I think for us to work together, it's very, very important. Otherwise, it's one group coming up with an idea, and they're going to have to deal with so many of this that it just will not come to fruition or take longer than necessary. And at this point, I think you all have been working at this for a very, very long time. I mean, I totally am very, very grateful for all of what you've done. So I appreciate that. I think I appreciate your suggestion and your recommendation, and I hope that we do move forward and at some point have all the roundtables really work with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Jennifer?
So you guys know I've been brave enough to come over and participate, wherever I'm invited, because whatever table is available, I think we should all be talking and working together. I have one huge concern, that the roundtable has a pledge to, quote unquote, not shift noise. That has been brought up in the select committee, yesterday at the San Jose the ad hoc committee, and the San Jose Airport wrote to the FAA and said, we support to the FAA your policy to not shift noise. And Administrator Martin wrote back and said, I appreciate your concern that there is a concern about that. As far as I know, and I've searched high and low, there is no policy about noise shifting that is the FAA's.
That's right.
Maybe historically you guys had a wink understanding, but no, there is no FAA policy about that.
On their webpage.
Now, no, 1 second. I'm talking about a policy with a process, democratic, built, written, made into a rule. I have not seen any, but you should ask the FAA if they have that policy. So, I know that it's a policy in my house, you wash your hands before you eat, and there are all sorts of policies. You do not screw your neighbors, all sorts of things that we don't do. Obviously, we don't do that. But I believe that particular rule and pledge is taking things off the table to fix problems going forward. And I think everything should be on the table to really work together. So I would focus on that particular, to me, fabricated policy that doesn't speak to the situation we're in right now. Because if next gen is not about changing routes, making them shorter, turning squiggles into straight lines and all that, I don't know what is. So I just urge you, you know, as citizens, not elected officials, we are at your mercy, and I'm feeling very failed by everybody just compromising and shaking hands. And that's why I say it's on I'm sorry, but whoever's getting in the middle. Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer, you're fine. Jennifer, you're good.
So, last of us premium speech. So I think that rather than focusing on different routes and the 104 points that the roundtable and the select committee submitted to Congresswoman and FAA, I think there is the Phoenix lesson is very clear. They won on the ground of procedure. In other words, the FAA did not follow their own procedure, and I think that case is also valid for our area. In other words, we don't have to start to bicker about 104 different points. We just simply have to tell them that procedure was not followed, similar to the Phoenix case, and there you have a case. And so I think there was one suggestion by the Select Committee whether to roll back the next gen to previous conditions, and it was voted down by the Select Committee. I think that that may have been a mistake, because unless there is a proper procedure and environmental impact report, you know, they should not implement something and then that was a mistake. So I think that we have a common ground here. If it contemplates a lawsuit, we have a common ground exactly the same as Phoenix, which is insufficient procedures and lacking environmental impact report.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the conversation on this because we have the rest of the agenda to go on. James, I think you've got a lot of notes on this, did you? I wrote a lot of notes, so I do.
I did, and
okay.
tape recording, so I can.
Perfect, okay. So thank you for all your input on that. Do any of the people on the phone, our conference calls, have any comments to make before I move on to the next agenda item?
This is Karen from Congresswoman Eshu's office. I really just wanted to thank you all, and especially for your comments about inclusion. My boss has a difficult district with 3 counties, and you know, we really support a regional approach if that's possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here with us.
Anna?
Anna, who's that?
Hi, Janet. This is Ann Schneider. I didn't realize we had other congressional offices on, and I have a house.
This will be the last comment on this subject. Then we're going to move on.
I'm sorry, but when we've got another congressional person, there is a concern from those of us here in North County, the elected representatives on the roundtable, whereas we are definitely in support of changes to next gen, but up here we are affected by a whole range of other issues. And whereas I understand everybody and I want to help everybody, I don't want the issues that we face being right next to the airport forgotten in all of this camaraderie. Thank you.
No,
absolutely not.
It will not.
Completely different.
Yeah,
completely.
That is a prayer of all of us here in North County.
Okay, thank you, Ann. So we're going to move on now to item number 3. Briefing discussion, HR 3353's requirement to investigate/report aging sound installation.
This is exactly what Ann is talking about, because it's not next gen. It's something that is specific to the residents in and around the airport proper.
And this is something we asked to have looked into. So, James, do you have, or does our consultant?
I could take it, James. Yep.
Thanks, Justin.
Sure. So the House Appropriations Committee directed the FAA to submit a report on issues related to aging sound insulation installed to mitigate airport noise. Their focus was on sound insulation installed prior to 2007, specifically. So the FAA must submit this report to the committee, let's see, no later than 180 days after the passage of the legislation, which must still be approved by the full House.
Mm-hmm.
The FAA will probably have to define how many housing units and schools were insulated prior to 2007. And, you know, there's a lot of, currently with sound insulation programs, there's a lot of, there's a two-step eligibility process that has been implemented, which basically requires you to be within a certain noise contour, 65 CNEL for California, and you have to be pre-tested. Your home has to be pre-tested and meet a certain criteria, which is that you need to be louder than 45 CNEL inside all of your home. And so there's been a lot of funding concerns over different things. There's been discussion on that. So the main topic here, or the main summary that I could say, is that you know, funding for sound insulation may come under scrutiny just because of the millions already spent on it. There was a study, an ACRP study done in 2013. ACRP, Airport Cooperative Research Program.
Thank you.
It was done in 2013 by Wiley Laboratories, and project number 0209, if you want to look it up. But it basically did an assessment of sound insulation treatments, and they kind of actually did what it has been asked, actually, which is really look at, their main focus was in the Boston area, because that was, I think, the first sound insulated airport, if not one of the oldest. And to see how things have held up over time, and whether or not it would be something to consider, you know, having spanned so many years of maybe sound insulating, and really looking at what kind of new products are out there, and how they differ in how they last over time. Back in the, I would say, 70s or 80s, there wasn't a thing called the sound STC window, which is a window that's rated for sound, or even energy requirements like there are today. So how does that change how things are made and how things are, you know, sound insulated? And so that report really looks into some of the things that were actually asked.
Okay, so Justin, This is Janet here. Thank you for that report. I appreciate it, because this is something we've asked to follow up with. I would be interested in seeing how we as a roundtable and from this committee would push forward on making sure that this, because this is one thing I actually feel we can do, being the program had been accepted, and if it's a matter of dollars and cents, I don't see that as being a deterrent to us pressing forward. So I just really think we need to stay ahead of this one and really press on it, because I think it is something that we can actually accomplish for those in all of our communities that are suffering. And if we can't get them to change their flight patterns right away, we certainly can at least request that they mitigate those noise by what they've done in the past. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Janet, so I just wanted to clarify. I've got a clarifying question for Justin. What we're talking about here is this HR 3353 requirement to investigate and report aging sound. And this is something that the House Appropriations Committee has asked the FAA to do? Because I didn't think that the FAA, especially around San Francisco Airport, it was San Francisco Airport that actually did the program for the sound insulation of the neighborhoods close by. I could be wrong about this, Bert. Are they two separate? Yeah.
I'm here.
Well, it's using AIP funding is the key. So it's using federal funds.
Federal
right, Bert?
funding.
Go ahead and chime in. Yeah.
This is Bert from SFO. The program was done using AIP funds on a grant, 80-20. So basically, the FAA put up 80% and the airport put up 20%. The cities themselves actually handled their own programs, with the airport doing the easement retention as well as the payout. And that's generally the way the program was handled here.
Okay, so what we're talking about in this agenda item is something that actually has not been passed by Congress yet.
Is that true?
That's correct. That's correct.
And so, so we can't really do anything until it gets passed. So can we?
Or can we?
And I've got a question. Sorry to interrupt.
Schneider?
This kind of relates to what Elizabeth just said. If it is pending legislation, we can certainly write a letter either in support of the existing legislation or in changes we would like to see. So if the criteria for the households or schools that qualify are within the 65 CMEL, that's one measurement of irritation from the noise. But nowadays, aren't there other ways of looking at what have become unbearable, whether it's frequency and duration, the types of noise, etc. So when I had looked at this insulation program, it wasn't just to go back to the 5 or so cities affected within the 65 CMEL, but it was the new households affected by the concentration of in-air flights over new communities.
Okay.
And if it isn't, then I think draft a letter that says, okay, there was never noise over San Pedro County Park. There is now. What do we do? As an example. I can't list everybody in the room's area, but I think we need to be pushing that the 65 CMEL is not the only criteria that should be used in a new insulation program.
Okay, Karen, do you have any input on that? You still there?
I'm sorry, I don't right now. I would need to speak with my counsel.
Thank you.
I have a comment.
There is.
Sue Degree has a comment, and then the next one on the phone.
So I'm all for that because this is a new reality, but part of the new reality is that the insulation for the old areas is depunked, it's gone, it's fizzled out. And those folks need not to be ignored either.
No. Statement made. Who was on the phone? Was that Bert or Justin?
This is Justin. Yeah, I just want to say that I just want to remind people or notify them that the FAA is actually conducting research on that and 65 CNEL and the various metrics. And that may or may not be released by the end of the year. It's something that they're, I think in the final stages of looking at that research that's been conducted. So that's in progress, basically, is that on looking at that metric.
Okay, so can I ask you, the research is done based on where do they get their information? I mean, or do they go out into the
Well, there was a 20 airport study, and we don't know which airports it's, but there was a 20 airport study that was conducted around the country, and there were surveys and public outreach and basically public surveys that contacted to find annoyance ratings and various questions that could assist in that research.
Can we find out if San Francisco was included in that?
No, you can't. They can't. There's no, until it's been released. Yeah.
Okay.
This is Bert with SFO. We don't know, but I can say that the information on that is forthcoming fairly soon.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Sue Degree.
On that, before I forget.
Sue Degree?
Yeah, Sue Degree, thank you. On that, before I forget, any kind of surveys and things that are outreaches to different areas, there needs to be a record. And I would say with modern technology, every time something with the airport is going to be done regarding input of information, every city should have an email with an alert on it, so that if it's within our area, we find out how we get involved. I think we need to know when surveys are happening, not after the fact. One thing that's causing me to be concerned is in the Phoenix report, you know, they went to a low-level area, and et cetera, et cetera. It's like, whoa, how does that happen? Because we need to be more on top of when those requests are going out.
Okay, point made. Kathleen, any other, Elizabeth, any other?
I think we're talking about almost two different things, actually, because this HR 3353, I'm not sure if isn't there an existing airport program that deals with current or old installation that, you know, we've spent all the money, the investment, and we just need to go back to the airport and say, we need to find another big pile of money to help our residents do this and upgrade these old installations.
Yeah.
Forget what I heard. Yeah.
Bert, do you have a reply to that?
Sure. No, I believe I mentioned before to this body that you get one bite at the apple, and that is exactly what this is. Once you've been mitigated.
That was 2007, that's 10 years ago, so they don't revisit or?
30 years ago.
No, it started in 83.
Oh, 83, sorry, okay.
Yes. And so, no, they don't. They believe
yes,
that
they will.
once that home has been treated, it's been treated and it's done. Now, you and I both agree that there have been some great advances in technology with construction and materials that go into it, and some of them very recent that are pretty neat materials, kind that you wish you would have held out until recently to do it. So one thing the airport director's doing, and I'll let him make the announcement, but we're looking into some good news there.
Thank you.
I'm going to hold tight.
Yes, we're putting that down. So hold on, Ann. Sue, did you have a comment?
Well, I did, but since Bert just mentioned that the airport director is going to say something, I mean, you may not remember what he said, but it was very promising. So
You'll hold off.
Yeah.
Okay, Ann?
Ann Schneider, City of Millbrae. I'm looking at the data. Again, this may or may not be part of HR 3353, in which case we are well capable of asking our congressional leaders to try to do a new bill or to amend this existing bill. But I'm a little bit concerned about the increase of bad weather and the increase of flights that will then be following bad weather flight plans. And that might hit a whole new category of people. You know, in the wintertime, it happens once in a while, but if it's all the time. Bad weather.
Airplane noise.
Okay, hold on, people. Speakers are talking over. Hold on. You're having dual conversations, and we're picking up on all of them. Okay, so Ann, your point has been made.
That bad weather flights.
No, I think they're nibbling around the edge.
It has additional criteria in. How did Justin put it, in the criteria or in the metrics?
Okay.
Because we're going to be having more and more of these types of weather situations, which drastically affect, actually are a noise movement issue, if you want to take it that way.
Okay.
We generally take bad weather, we do what we can to keep planes safe, but if it's really going to impact certain neighborhoods, which it is, we need to look at that.
All right, so at this point, I'm going to round down this conversation because we need to move on to the next agenda item. Jason, do you have, Justin, I'm sorry, do you have any other comments as our consultant?
Nope. No. Thank you.
Together a letter regarding this.
Okay, so should we make that statement on record?
Yeah, I'd like to make a recommendation for this committee to recommend to the roundtable that we put together a letter. First we have to fully read this bill that's being discussed, and then to write a letter, like Ann said, and recommended. I think that's the least we could do.
The least we can do right now.
Thank you. I second.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and put that in our notes for our, if we can, for our next roundtable.
Yeah.
All right, so finishing up now, we're going to move on to item 4, which is a follow-up of the FAA reauthorization. And who's carrying that topic?
Well, I was going to try to provide a bit of an update here, and I'm willing to let Justin or Bert chime in if they've heard anything.
I will.
Okay.
I will chime in if you want to kick it off.
Go ahead.
No, well,
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I just received an update yesterday. I'll just read a couple sentences that maybe kick off the discussion. But with the end of the fiscal year approaching on September 30th, Congress approved a continuing resolution to keep federal agencies funded through December 8th. The House and Senate have agreed that since neither chamber has been able to consider and approve their respective multi-year FAA reauthorization bills, a short-term extension is needed to keep the FAA authorized funding and programs running after the end of the fiscal year. The Senate is looking for an extension that runs 3 to 6 months, and the House is seeking one that's a shorter duration.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's from something I received yesterday on it.
James, anything to add to that?
Nope, I
Good.
you filled in the gaps a lot more than I did. I just only had up until like the September 30th date.
Okay.
Oh, we're still playing.
We're still
in the
playing.
game.
We'll just receive that information and put it on our file. Okay, we're still in the game.
So what's the alternative, privatization?
Yeah.
Well,
I saw those words.
Right.
that's long time.
Yeah, it's long
All
time.
right. Okay.
Let's move on to number 5, follow-up list of other roundtable forums, grassroots organization.
So I have some stuff to pass out here. This is the list that Justin had started last time, and he filled in a few more. I think I sent to some of the subcommittee members via email.
You send it?
It was
I have
one
it
of
on
those,
Yeah,
yeah, one of the attachments too.
I'll send it back here.
One back there.
So we just got handed out the list from James, so go ahead, James, you have anything to?
No, just that we're filling it out a bit more. And I think the last time we, talked
Right.
just about trying to, get a little bit more of a comprehensive, both roundtables in California, but also, outward. But I think this one kind of sticks to what we have here in California. So I think it's a good start for us to have some dialogue or figure out what we want to do next in regards to what kind of either collaboration or just kind of be monitoring what they're doing and see what we can learn from them and those kinds of things.
Yes, all of the above.
Well, I'll tell you, if we had information from all these places that we had to read and digest, we'd be busy on this, huh?
Just as a brief mention, I will be down at the LAX roundtable meeting tomorrow because they've been very interested to learn a little bit from our experiences from the last year and a half with the initiative process. So I'll be giving them a brief presentation with that. But I think that also is a good opportunity to start going down that road of where we do keep update with each other. So I will be most likely sending them an invite at some point in the next few months to do the same kind of have them present to us what they've been up to, and those kinds of things. So, and this has picked up what we've done a number of years before. This is the second time I've presented the LX Roundtable, and more or less the same thing, giving an overview of what we're working on, what some of the differences and similarities that we have as part of this group. So I think this reintroduces that opportunity that we have with a group of a similar size.
You'll be flying over our house.
You'll wave.
If you want, I could let you know what flight that is.
This is good. Thank you. We asked for this, so I appreciate that. And I do agree. I think getting periodical updates on what other roundtables.
All right.
Okay.
I gotta go to folks off.
I think we've got somebody else online.
All right.
Really?
So we're hearing two conversations. Okay, so let's move on to item 6, follow-up membership with NOISE.
I'm going to let Justin take this one because I believe he talked to an individual at NOISE and had some information for him.
Sure, yes. I had a conversation. Emily Trainer, I believe. What's her name? Yes, thank you. Tranter. Yeah, so she, you know, I wanted to find out what the fee was since it's been a while since the roundtable was a member. She was thinking it was around $2,300 a year, but it's based off of, I think, James, if you remember, it has to do with amount of people in your community or organization. Yeah. So she was gonna look if there was of interest in joining again, she would be able to get us a more exact number, but the maximum fee is $5,000 a year.
That's for over 1 million.
Right, correct.
Yeah, I have the fee category chart in front of me, so, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So they don't lobby specifically for an airport.
I bought a bunch of cards and I need to get them in the mail. He ordered on Friday.
Are we picking up a different sound or?
I think so.
All of us to go on mute.
Oh, I was just reading. Go ahead, Justin.
Okay, so they don't lobby specifically for an organization, but on national issues. Their legislative priorities for 2017 are community engagement, noise metrics review, health impact studies, sound insulation program funding, air traffic control privatization, and support efforts to reinstitute the EPA. They work together with many different organizations, and overall, I thought what she said is a benefit for an organization like the Roundtable would be having information sent to you via email on those topics as they occur, and just being part of that conversation, that national conversation. There's a other organization called the National League of Cities that they're partners with that meet, and that as part of this membership, you're able to join those conversations, representatives from them, and I think they meet each November as part of that. So that's basically what I found out.
Well, it sounds to me like they're dealing with issues that we've been talking about. So is that something that we would bring to the roundtable, or is that something that individual communities would do? Because it's based on your population per town. So it goes from 5,000 and below to 1 million and over. It goes from $155 a yearly fee to 5,000. Is that do they have a group? I mean,
well, that's what I think said, that if we're interested in doing it, they're willing to go and, see it on a case-by-case basis, because we don't.
Okay.
I mean,
you don't fit that mold.
We would be at the max if we followed that, yeah.
But it sounds like they would be willing to investigate and see where we would fall.
So how do we start that conversation?
Send them a check.
Well, we're already in.
I think it was just on me following up with her and letting know that you're interested. That's all. That's.
Do we bring it back to the roundtable?
And then we bring it back to the roundtable as a recommendation.
Okay, so should we bring it back to the roundtable's recommendation to show our interest, or show our interest and then bring it back to the roundtable?
I think we have to bring it back to the roundtable.
The whole discussion.
Saying that we are interested. We think
Okay.
this would be a good thing to do.
Okay, so we'll bring.
We might be able to get more information that
Okay.
we don't have, and
Yeah, no, I think so. I think maybe follow up with them and say, yes, we are interested. Can you firm up that number?
yeah.
There you go.
And introduce that.
Well,
Sure.
you've been reading a lot about
You- are you
evil
okay
and
with
murder
that?
lately.
Who is that voice?
So weird.
I think I caught him, but I might have also, I don't know which one is Ann. This normally tells me who's who, but she also has a phone, so she's looking at it as well. We'll see.
All righty,
I think
so,
we fixed
okay, thank you.
it. So yeah, I think we could just follow up with them, get a firmed up number, and then put that in front of the roundtable to
Perfect.
make a motion and say,
Good stuff, thank you. So let's go on to item 7, public comments of items not on the agenda. So I've left a little longer time for this, so anybody have something that they want to say?
Well, I'll say something. This is
Okay.
Charlie Wambeck.
Charlie Wambeck?
From San Francisco. I love your railroad tracks in the sky.
I love that.
You know, that is exactly what is happening. So I had a whole big thing here. It was rather depressing, so I won't read it. But the thing that bothers me about your public comments, it says roundtable members cannot discuss or take action on any of these things. And I just wanted to say that my mother used to say, yes, you can go to the movies, but you may not.
You may not.
I really just like that term cannot. You know, may not, I think. Wouldn't that be a lot better than saying, like, we can't discuss it? I mean, you know.
Okay, so, and I agree with you. I think what we have this down for is we want to hear what your comments, and then we can bring them back at a future agenda.
Right.
Or,
and you know, because it's like being in court, you know, where the judge says, oh, disregard that.
Yeah, you
Sorry,
heard it.
it's already done, you know, just as like the FAA, it's a fait accompli that this next gen is in. You know, it's harder to fight something after it goes in than before.
So thank you for that. Anybody else? I want to thank Jennifer for her passion. I really do. We hear your passion.
It's like to be under
I know.
Circuit, Bodega,
Yeah.
San Jose, South Flow.
And we totally hear that.
Oceanics,
Thank you for not giving that.
everything. And you know what I really have a hard time with is that you guys keep saying nothing's changed for Palo Alto, and that is really annoying because you know that next gen changed. And it happened early, so we're getting double, triple whammy. And I completely sympathize with the people near the airport. I think we have a lot in common to work together to do things. So I don't see this as an either or. I think that, though, I do think that we need to go to equitable solutions to get anywhere, because if not, we're just gonna be doing nothing.
And I want to follow up on Elizabeth's suggestion that we look at having a representation from, I think it's time.
Maybe on an interim. Obviously, we cannot form a tri-county, every city representative body, and what the roundtable is and how it started, and it was the cities around the airport were the nucleus, and then it grew to all of the cities in San Mateo County, then to San Francisco supervisor.
We never had air traffic go over our house.
Exactly, but you know, and then the San Mateo County, and then so it just, I mean, we have to discuss it at the roundtable.
We have to discuss it.
But clearly, the South Bay, they feel that they don't have a voice at all. The select committee was disbanded, and you know, and so they're really wanting to have some kind of a roundtable forum, and I think you should do that. It doesn't happen overnight, however.
Exactly.
But I just mentioned, well, this is Charlie again.
Charlie.
The one thing that is really bothering me is sometimes I stay up quite late at night, editing pictures and stuff like that. Flights come over to 1:30 in the morning, and they start up again after 5. That's just not enough time. 4 hours is not enough sleep. Okay, and we have double pane windows, but during this hot weather, we kept them open. I don't like to wear my earplugs every night, but, I just don't understand. And,
Very hard, very hard. So do we need to do next, any next items or next?
May I say something?
Sorry.
John Keener from
John
Pacifica.
Keener?
I support that representing South County or counties south of us that Elizabeth brought up.
Okay.
And,
Thank you.
and
Okay.
I would hope
I think
that,
it's a great, good, thank you. So James, do we have,
So here are my takeaways so far.
okay,
So in regards to the Phoenix decision, I think we are just going to hold tight and see what kind of opinion that we get.
As a pine is indicated that he was going to talk.
okay,
So we'll just hang tight on that. As an offshoot of that, we had talked about the representative from South County, something like that. I think my suggestion with that is we do have an operations and efficiency subcommittee that has not been activated yet that looks specifically at either amending bylaws, MOUs, blah, blah, blah. I think it might be worth a subcommittee conversation within that capacity to see what we can do to
Mechanically.
okay.
mechanically do that, but give options also,
Give options.
because obviously the preferred one to have a voting seat is the hardest one.
The hardest one.
But what is the quickest? What are the different options? I know we've had this conversation in the last couple of years, so I'd like to bring a lot of that back.
Yeah.
We can easily hammer that
Correct.
out in one meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I have that sort of as a to-do that we can explore. In regards to the noise insulation, I do have that we do want to do some sort of letter of support. So I think we need to read that bill a little bit more and see
Okay.
what kind of supportive language we can put together.
Mm-hmm.
See if we could maybe put that in front of the roundtable in October.
Okay.
Expand the neighborhood.
And then get more information on NOISC, on their costs and everything, and also put that in front of the roundtable in October for consideration. And that is all I have.
Okay.
Follow up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So is there any other comments from those on the phone? Oh, I'm sorry, there was a hand behind me. Jennifer?
I wanted to share some info from a meeting yesterday in
Okay.
San Jose Transportation Commission. Citizens were concerned from primarily Mountain View and Sunnyvale about forming an ad hoc committee which would have cities that do not have the problem. And how would that vote go? So that was one concern. They mentioned that the FAA prefers 100% consensus, and the airport was requesting 2/3 consensus. And so I have a question that if you are going to inquire about things legally, my concern is that we're having these political tables with votes about feasible items, and that seems backwards. Instead of identifying the problems that we're going to look at, having, as Sue had said, for this objective of this, committee, to have an abundance of data, the right data to see who, what we're trying to do. And then afterwards, sure, I think people can recommend, just like the airlines want to create a route, everybody probably can. But I'm very concerned, and I think what's bothering a lot of us who do not vote, do not have a voice or whatever, is that these compromises at the political level are not being grounded on something much more technical and much more comprehensive. So the comprehensive solution, and then there are issues like noise monitoring. The select committee unanimously voted before you make changes, you should have pre and post monitoring. I asked San Jose Airport about that, and they said, well, there's this issue, we can't measure here, we can't measure there, although they're looking at doing a lot of data. So I just think that we're just running away with the political process when we have, and wasted a lot of time when it takes less time
with all the engineering capacity and all the big data that we have to really address the problem, and we will get to answers sooner. So thank you for, you know, including people, but we got to get beyond that and kind of move things a little bit differently, perhaps, because we're getting stuck in this, you know, loop. Sorry, so those were the...
I appreciate your comments. I think that, I appreciate your comments.
Could I mention HR 2539? It's the Quiet Communities Act of 2017. Well, they had a Quiet Communities Act of 2015 that didn't go anyplace. They had a Quiet Communities Act of 2001, was introduced to the House on May 18th. Commerce Committee, to the Highways and Transit Committee, and then to the subcommittee on May 19th. So,
And nothing to the cities.
you know, and political atmosphere is just stuck, you know, because Congress can resolve this problem if they want to. They can. They fund the FAA. Come on, you know, take away their money, and you wouldn't even have a plane flying.
Comment noted.
Okay, my comment.
All right, one more comment. Okay, go ahead.
All the money.
To a degree, so I do want to know, because I think even in our mission statement in the beginning is that we work with the FAA, but then it lists like airlines, etc. So I don't want to leave that component out either, because every day different airlines are adding more routes.
Yes.
And where do we get to hear about that ahead of time? Where do we get to say anything? There are new airlines. We asked before, what's the capacity of the airports? I just think, and so for sure airlines is one, but maybe dispatchers and I don't know. All of the folks that are within that mission statement of ours and how they interact. So, I mean, maybe the airline pilots union would be on our side. I mean, I don't know. We don't find out.
Okay. So
They
it's
could
a
never all
discussion.
land, that's for sure.
Well, they may be tired or scared.
No, I mean, planes couldn't land. They don't,
Okay, so these are just conversations that we can have. So I appreciate that, because I think that's something we should have in front of us at all times, is what our mission statement is. And if we ever have to revisit that, then we revisit it. But in the meantime, we do have a mission statement that we did put in place, so.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Are we good on the phone?
Somewhere along
Anyone
the
just
line.
left?
They probably all went away.
Hi, Bert, Justin.
Bert, Justin, are we
We're
good?
still here. We're okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Thanks, Janet.
Okay,
Somewhere along the line, maybe too, at the SFO roundtable group meeting, you might come up with a frame on a context or and a substance of what we go out to each city with. Something that's very intelligent,
like a white
honest,
paper.
something that tells all these cities where we think we are and what we think, you know, whatever, just to give, so they're up to date and not worried about every little thing. And we're not ready yet, so.
Maybe, we don't have it would just,
Well, just think about it.
Well, we'll have a
process
discussion.
But I'm just thinking that
Okay.
every city is going to be having their reports. And
That's one
even
of
in
the
my own
reasons
city,
why
we have
every
different
city is
opinions.
represented, so that
They can
they
take
can
that.
take back their information
Yeah.
that is specific to their city.
They can certainly do that now.
Right, but I think we should be on pretty much the same page when we do go back to our city. I'm not saying lockstep or anything.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. It's 2:30. If there is nothing else to bring, we're going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting and move. Thank you for Bert and Justin on the phone, and Ann, thank you.
Karen?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Karen, thank you.
Good luck up in Sacramento. Safe trip.
It's too hot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.